Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where OP learns to be careful who he takes dating advice from. Karen ghosted me after a date because I didn't text her soon enough. Honestly, I don't know why I'm writing this. I guess even if it helps a single romantic somewhere in the world, it will be worth it. I went on a date with a girl I'd matched with on a dating app. As an average-looking guy, I don't get many matches, and the ones I get usually end up ghosting me or unmatching me for no reason. Men will know that feeling. Anyway, this girl was different than the rest. We matched, talked for a few hours, and decided to go on a date the very next day. A surprise, but a welcome one. The next day comes, and we meet and share a bottle of wine. A few awkward moments in the beginning, but that's understandable for a first date. Overall, it was a pleasant experience, and I thought that she shared the same sentiment. We part ways, and my mistake commences. I liked her enough to send a message in the next few hours, but decided to consult some of my friends and sleep on it first. Everyone gives different advice, and I decide to follow the 3-day rule in dating, thinking that giving her too much attention too soon would scare her off. For those who don't know the 3-day rule, it's waiting at least 3 days to text or call a girl after the first date. I wound up caving in and messaging her a day later. Told her that I had a plan for our 4th date. We talked about our upcoming 2nd and 3rd dates half-jokingly. She seemed very offended about me not texting her for a full day after our date. I tried to explain that I was swamped at work and only had a very short window of opportunity to text and waited until I was fully available to talk. I apologized twice and expressed my willingness to go on another date. She sent me a few cold messages and finally unmatched me. We could have been really good together, but I decided to follow a stupid rule and not my heart. Because of that, maybe I've missed a beautiful chance at love. Who knows? Everyone is different and they have different feelings and opinions about dating, but I've learned that I should follow my heart from now on, and I suggest every hopeless romantic out there do the same thing. I'm curious how old you are. I'm in my 30s, and people our age don't really care for those games anymore. I'm sure she would have appreciated a "had a great time" text after you got home from your first date. At the same time, she broke it off after only a day? A little strange on her part. I do that as a rule after the date. I had a great time. I look forward to seeing you again. Then stuff like, "Thanks for coming over. That was fun." People overthink things, and transparency goes a long way in establishing connections. Her logic is missing one point. She didn't text you either. Expecting the guy to text first is stupid. If you like someone, you send them a message. You don't get offended because they didn't send you one. Don't dwell on what could have been. If she freaks out because you texted her 1 day later than expected, while she didn't even make any move herself, be glad it didn't work out. Communication works both ways, and if she's starting the relationship with an expectation that you have to be the one to initiate communication, you dodged a bullet. She's looking for a weakling who will worship the ground she walks on. You're not good enough for her because you waited a day to message her. The fact that you were the one apologizing after she acted like this, it shows how pathetic and desperate you are. Stop focusing on chasing relationships and focus on yourself instead. She saw you as expendable because you come off as a low-value guy. You'll never be able to compete with guys like me until you earn it. Yikes! Sounds like we've got a certified alpha male over here. Am I the jerk for being upset my husband is sharing a hotel room with another woman? Plus update. I'm 36, female. My husband, who's 42, is currently in Las Vegas for a national bowling tournament. He's there with his mom and her friends and folks from their bowling league. He's an avid bowler. Bowls in a Tuesday night league, often in state tournaments, and sometimes in national tournaments. Typically, I go with him and sometimes bowl myself. This year, we decided I would not go, but stay home with our 3 boys, who are 4, 8, and 10, due to the heat and smoke in Vegas in July. My husband and I have been married for 11 years. This is his 2nd marriage. His first marriage failed because he walked in on his wife cheating with another man. I have never thought that he would cheat on me while he was married to me. He's just not that type. So, on to this trip. Typically, when he goes on a trip without me, at least once a year, given my job and time off requirements, he stays in a hotel room with his mom or our boys. 3 nights ago, I was on FaceTime with him while he was in his hotel room. It was really nice, and he was talking about possibly taking a nap for lack of sleep. I asked if he had his room to himself, because that would have been awesome, and he said, "Oh no, they're sharing the room with me." I asked him who that was, and he said something, I don't remember, aside from "she." I said, "Wait, what?" Then he went on to explain that he was supposed to share the room with his mom's boyfriend, but plans changed, and now he's sharing the room with another woman on the trip. He told me that I played cornhole with her last month at a get-together. I reminded him that I had played cornhole with him and a girl, but not one of the names he was giving me. I have no idea who this woman is. At which point, he got very confused. He did not understand why I was so upset or frustrated, so I dropped it because I didn't want to deter him from his time in bowling. I know I should have asked him how he would have felt if the roles were reversed, but I didn't. Partly because I don't want to fight. We hardly ever fight, while the kids were up, and partly because I didn't want to hear him chalk it up to my imagination. I have hardly slept since that night, and my dreams have been chock full of the worst-case scenarios, and still, I have not really brought it up again. There have been a few occasions in which he has talked about taking naps and how lame he is in Vegas. I've mentioned a few times, sort of sarcastically as a side, that he would be having more fun if he were sharing a room with me, or if I were there instead of his present company, but he has brushed it all aside. So here we are. He spent the last 3 nights in a hotel room with another woman who is not me or his mother. Am I the jerk for being upset here? Update. Okay, so I took the advice and grew a backbone. I texted him a little while ago instead of waiting until he got home. He and our boys are leaving for another trip tomorrow morning. I couldn't get the time off of work, so I wanted to make sure that we had the conversation fully before he left again. Before I give the update, I want to make something clear. I do trust my husband. He has never shown me he would be the kind of person to cheat, and that's not what truly concerned me, even though I did have some pretty unpleasant dreams. My issue was that he was not upfront and honest with me. If I had done the same thing, he would have lost his mind, understandably. This is why I started the original post with, "He's just not that type." We do generally have great communication. The issue here is that I like to have this kind of conversation face-to-face rather than over the phone. It's not something I like to hash out while we're not in person. Obviously, in this situation, I should have made the exception, but now I have done so. So for the update, I texted him today to tell him this situation has been bothering me for the last 3 days. I had questions, and we needed to have this conversation. I asked who the woman was, how old she was, and why he didn't tell me about the situation before I found out by accident. There was a mix-up with the rooms, something about someone not going, so people were shuffled around. He was paired with a woman about my age. He said he didn't think it would be a big deal and didn't want to inconvenience everyone else in the group. He also said he did not want to upset me, which is why he didn't tell me about it right away. He did tell me that I never had anything to worry about, and he made sure they weren't in the room alone together aside from when they were asleep. I know, but I really do believe him on this. I was honest with him and told him that if the roles were reversed, out of respect for him, I would have called him right away to make sure he was okay with it. I told him that while I trust him implicitly, I should not have found out the way I did, and he should not have blown off my concern either. I told him that the lack of upfront communication felt suspicious, regardless of intention or what actually happened. As for not upsetting me, I told him I would have understood and not been upset if he had just been honest. He has apologized profusely. I told him next time to just communicate. He's adamant there will not be a next time. So call me naive if you want, but I'm dropping it at this point. He will be home this evening, and I intend on having a nice evening with him before I don't see him again for another 2 weeks. Thanks in advance. I cried it out when I found out her age, but getting this off my chest has been very relieving. Update. I'm not handling this as well as I thought I was. I had decided to let it go. I know he wasn't doing anything with her. You can disagree and call me crazy if you want, but I know that. However, as much as I've tried, I can't get past the fact that he made the decision to do something he knew I wouldn't be okay with and just not tell me about it. It feels so messed up. I've talked to a few of my coworkers, and they're all shocked and more angry for me than I've let myself be. Most of them know him, the kind of person he is, and what ended his first marriage. He used to work at the same company. We had less than 24 hours together before he, his mom, and all 3 of our kids took their trip to the other side of the United States. I've been sitting in my feelings and will continue to do so until they get back, almost a week from now. I was on the phone with them this evening before they went to bed, and one of the first things my husband said to me was, "I'm sharing a bed with a redhead tonight." And I almost came unglued before I realized he was just talking about one of his boys. After a very long pause, I said, "You better be talking about," and I was so angry, I don't understand how he didn't pick up on it. Every conversation we've had since then has been short and to the point. I'm just really not interested in talking to him. I've been calling my oldest son and talking with my boys instead. His mom hasn't really said much to me, which makes me think he has said something to her, which is fine, of course. I really don't care about that. The bottom line is, I just don't know what to do. It's midnight at home. I tried to go to bed 2 hours ago, but I just couldn't stop crying, so I got up and let it go. It felt good to get it out, but I know I need to talk to someone. I have support lines through work I can call, but I won't tonight. Far too many drinks, and I don't want to bring that into it as well, but I will call tomorrow. I know I should be upset and angry and not let it go, but I'm afraid when I do talk to a professional, they will say I'm blowing it out of proportion. I will still call, but I need to get my head straight first. He's bicycling for 7 days, over 400 miles, so as much as I want to tear him a new one right now, especially after his completely insensitive and clueless joke this evening, I have not, because I want him safe and sound. Regardless of my feelings in this moment, the most important thing is that my kid's dad comes home safe so we can hash this out at least in the same city and not while he's 1,000 miles away with his mom and them. Update. My family came home a day early, so I took 2 extra days off of work to see them and figure things out with my husband. After we had unloaded and put everything away, we had dinner, then watched a show. After putting the boys to bed, he sat down on the couch and talked to me. I started by telling him I was not comfortable with the situation. He was a little standoffish at first, but quickly came around to apologizing for what had happened. He said, "I didn't realize you were that uncomfortable with me sharing a room with a woman who wasn't my mother or you." That's when I lost it. I reminded him how he would have reacted if I had told him I was sharing a hotel room with a male coworker. He would have blown up immediately. Then I reiterated that what hurt me the most was that he didn't tell me up front. He admitted he would have reacted the same way, and I got an "I'm sorry" again. After that, I told him that I'm not afraid he will ever cheat on me with another woman while we're together, but that doesn't mean it's acceptable to make those kinds of decisions without talking to me about it first. I know he didn't tell me because he didn't want me to be upset, but I told him I was more upset that he didn't call me up front and that I had to hear it from him on the phone instead of before he even left for the tournament. He again apologized and said that it wouldn't happen again. So that's where we stand. Things are a little rocky right now, but I think it will all be okay. This keeps getting worse and worse for OP. The husband isn't even pretending to try. Why would he pretend to try? He's openly cheating on her and claiming it's his mom's idea, and it seems to be going like it's going to blow over. The story always slightly changes. He's trickle-truthing her. Just get divorced already. No woman would accept this behavior. Am I the jerk for giving my wedding dress to my future daughter-in-law instead of my stepdaughter? I, 42 female, got married 24 years ago. I decided that if I had a daughter, I would pass the dress and accessories on to her. I chose a simple, elegant dress rather than what was fashionable at the time because I wanted something timeless that people could wear for generations to come. I had my son, Mark, who's now 22, a year after, and his father passed when he was younger. I raised Mark as a single mom for several years. I decided that when Mark got married, I would give my dress and accessories to his wife. When I was 33, I met Rob, who's now 52. I fell in love with him and we quickly got married. He became a great father figure for Mark, and I was so excited to have a stepdaughter, Molly, who's now 24. My relationship with Molly had a rocky beginning. I've been patient and gentle with her. I've offered to take her shopping or get her nails done. I asked Rob about her favorite foods, and I made sure to cook those. She made it clear that she didn't see me as her real mom. Years passed, and I never changed the way I treated Molly. My door was always open for her, but she never changed the way she thought about me. She called me a trophy wife to my face. If I ever threw a charity event, she would remark, "Wow, you're so generous with Dad's money." While she didn't say anything explicitly, I could tell that she looked down on me for not having a college degree. A couple of years ago, I made a final offering to Molly. I brought her into my closet and showed her the dress and accessories, telling her I would love for her to wear them at her wedding. Some alterations would have to be made. I'm 5'9" in a size 4, and Molly is 5'4" in size 8. But we could make it work. Molly scoffed, said I had archaic values and that the dress was trashy, then walked out. That really hurt because she knew what that dress meant to me, and she just didn't care. After that, I stopped making as much of an effort to build a relationship with her. 2 months ago, Mark proposed to his college sweetheart, Lucy, with whom I have a great relationship. When Lucy mentioned dress shopping, I showed her my dress. Lucy tried it on and it fit like a glove. She fell in love with it, and I told her the dress, shoes, and accessories were hers. She was so happy she literally cried. However, a couple of days ago, Molly reached out to me out of the blue to ask if the dress was still available. I told her I had given it to Lucy. She asked if I could get it back from Lucy since I offered it to her first. I told her, 1, she said she didn't want it. 2, it fits Lucy perfectly. And 3, Lucy is the one getting married in the foreseeable future. Now Molly is saying that I'm favoring Lucy over her because she's conforming to traditional standards. That's absolute baloney. But it got me thinking, if the roles were reversed and Lucy was the one asking for the dress after initially turning it down, would I give it to her? Is Molly right that I'm favoring Lucy? Am I the jerk? Update. I would like to let you know I already gave the dress to Lucy and it's safe in her apartment now. Molly has already been bugging Lucy about the dress, but Lucy told me there's no way in heck she's giving it away. Some of you have also been wondering about Mark and Rob's responses. Mark is currently out of town on business, and I've had no communication with him on this matter. I'm sure he'll be supportive of Lucy though. I did not bring this up to Rob because while Molly and I have a difficult relationship, I don't want to sow division between her and her father. However, Rob brought it up last night, saying Molly had contacted him on the matter. Rob was like, "You aren't going to give it to her, are you?" When I said no, he told me to promise him I would not give the dress to her. It was very comforting to know Rob is on my side. Another thing I want to get clear, I do not expect Molly to conform to certain standards. When I referred to traditional standards, I was paraphrasing words that came out of her mouth. I was raised in a traditional household, but I understand that not everyone shares my values. Frankly, Lucy doesn't either. She has an engineering degree and openly talks about wanting to prioritize her career over starting a family, at least for the foreseeable future, and I couldn't be happier for her. I do realize that I could have done a better job communicating to Molly that I don't care what she does, so long as she's a good person and leaves the world better than she found it. Lastly, because after reading the comments, I fear I painted Molly in a bad light, I should say that Molly has had a rough life due to the divorce between Bob and her biological mother. I've never met her mother, and I don't want to go into gross detail on the internet about someone's life other than my own, but I will say that her relationship with her mother is not great. I think Molly might be projecting aspects of that relationship onto me. However, your comments have helped me realize she is in the wrong in this situation. I've also realized that it isn't just on me to build a relationship with her. She has to work at it too, and so far she hasn't. I'm never going to shut her out, but at this point, if she wants to connect with me, she has to be the one making the effort. I really hope the best for her, but she sure as heck isn't getting that dress. Not the jerk. Molly only wants it because Lucy has it. Lucy recognized how precious that dress was to you and treated it accordingly. Molly turned her nose up in an attempt to hurt you. Lucy accepting the dress sounds like a wonderful bonding moment for you both. Cherish the memory and ease your mind. You've done nothing wrong. Edit to say, if Molly isn't getting married, I wouldn't put it past her to take the dress to cut it up into something else. Am I the jerk for secretly cheating on our vegetarian diet that my wife made our family do? I want to start by saying that I, 38 male, love my family and my wife, who's 35 female, and I've never been the type to do something like this before. 12 months ago, my wife converted to a new religion, which included her giving up eating meat. The whole family, me and our 2 sons, were supportive of this, and we held a vegetarian-only dinner that night as a little sign of support. Life continued for another 8 months, basically unchanged. The boys and I ate meat, and my wife didn't. However, things started to change around the 8 to 10 month mark. I can't remember exactly. Basically, along with me not eating meat, my wife no longer wanted to be around it. This wasn't the only thing. Things continued to progress. My wife started to replace things in the house with substitutes. First, the pork in the house was swapped out for jackfruit. Eggs were swapped out for substitutes like Just Egg. Shirts were only bought from ethical brands like plant-based clothing. Deodorants were swapped out for deodorant pills. You get the idea. To say this was creating a rift would be an understatement. Eventually, I brought it up to my wife that while we 100% support her and her decisions around these things, I didn't think it should change the things for the boys and me, unless of course they wanted to. My wife argued that her values had changed, and being around some of this stuff was really hard for her. She wanted us to support her. For the next 2 to 3 months, the house was a place of pretty high tension. It had gotten so bad that the boys had friends bringing them meat from their house since it was now completely gone from ours. Anyway, about a week ago, my wife went away for a business trip for a few days, meaning I was watching the boys on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Basically, and I'm a bit ashamed to type this out, the boys and I mostly just ate meat, basically every chance we got. This was all fine and dandy. The boys and I had a great time until my wife returned home, and it somehow slipped out what we had been eating. I've never seen her so disappointed in us. After putting the boys to bed, we argued for hours about how I was setting a poor example for the boys and that I should respect the decisions made by my wife, even if they're tough and inconvenient. It's hard to argue back because I can see her side, but it boils down simply to the fact that I don't want to be a vegetarian or vegan, and neither do the boys. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. She said she got rid of it because she couldn't be around it. Well, she wasn't around it. Also, you guys did not convert to her religion, so she can't expect you to follow it. Not really sure what the problem is when she wasn't home. Not the jerk. Your wife is for forcing you all to follow the same beliefs as her. You can't control what other people do around you. This should be a unanimous decision between the two of you and your kids who are old enough to choose for themselves. You're the jerk. Men in 1944, storming the beaches of Normandy. Men in 2024, am I the jerk for eating meat because my wife told me not to? Am I the jerk for telling my sister she doesn't have a family, she has a circus? The other day, my sister, who's 36, was complaining to me that her family is chaotic and she doesn't understand why everyone can't get along or why they never have a truly good moment where everyone is together. I listened to her for around 20 minutes and she told me I was being quiet. My response was that she clearly needed to vent and I didn't want to interject. That was mostly true, but I also think my sister is a little unrealistic for thinking she'd get to have a nice, neat little family given the craziness in her family. For context, my sister had her first kid at 18, my nephew Shane, who's 18, male. She dated Shane's dad for a while and found out when Shane was 1 that her boyfriend had another girl pregnant, so they broke up. My sister and the other woman both got arrested for fighting, and she swore she would never let that woman or her kid near Shane. She got married at 21 and had 2 more kids, Katie, who's 15, and Rye, who's 13. She filed for divorce straight after Rye was born, and her ex-husband is nowhere in sight since. A year later, she met another man who had a baby with someone else. My niece, Lily, who's 12, is not my sister's biological kid, but she raises her as her own, though unofficially since she's not adopted. My sister got married again, had Milo, who's 9, with that husband, and got pregnant with Sage, who's 7, while married, but her ex-husband is not the father. Her youngest biological kid so far is Niall, who's 5, and his father is not in the picture either. Oh, my head hurts from trying to understand that. My sister is married again. Her husband has 2 kids from his first marriage and 2 kids from his second marriage. He also has a kid in his life who is not his biological kid, but treats this kid like his own. He doesn't get along with his biological kids. The household has many complicated relationships and divided loyalties. There are complications with some of the other parents involved and other kids involved too. It's too long and complicated to get into, but even among my sister's kids, they're not all cohesive, close siblings, and resentments exist for one reason or another. Anyway, Lily was venting to me. She said nobody she knows has a family as incapable of getting along as hers. She asked me why I thought that was, and I said very blended families are more complex. She told me there are people with bigger blended families than her. I told her bigger doesn't always mean having as many others involved as hers. Then she said again that they're a family though, and they act like they don't want to be. That's when I said it's probably because it's more of a circus than a family. My sister told me that was very unkind and untrue, that they are a family, even if others can't see it. She told me she expects an apology from me before we can speak again. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Oh my goodness. I had less trouble following genealogy of Elden Ring characters than your sister's lineage. I'm giving you a not the jerk verdict because although your comment could be understood as rude, her life is obviously about perpetuating the same mistakes and having the same outcome at the cost of kids' happiness in the end. I know someone who did that to his kids, and their kids can't get along because they made a circus out of their lives. Not the jerk. You mean to tell me that a revolving door of baby daddies doesn't make for a stable family dynamic? I think she needs a different hobby. She literally bred her own drama. Laid off and replaced by 2 lazy privileged waffles. I used to be in charge of the printer room in a rather large company. We shipped a ton of product every day, and everything shipped had to have the accompanying printed labels and documents. Nothing can even be loaded onto the trucks without this paperwork. Now this was in the olden days of the 90s, so we had 7 massive 4-foot-tall dot matrix printers that did all of the work. These printers were temperamental jerks, and if the paper jammed, the printer did not automatically stop printing. It would just keep pushing and jamming more and more paper onto the machine until, if left untended, it would break down. Running the printer room was a 2-person job. When I started, I trained for 2 full weeks with the 2 current printer room employees. One was being promoted, I was replacing him. It was a rough 2 weeks, let me tell you, getting the hang of the job, the various things you had to learn and do, etc. One thing that made it even more complicated was the fact that each printer had its own personality with its own problems. Another was the fact that a problem in one printer could have a different fix than the exact same problem in another. The job would be quiet for 45 minutes straight, during which we did routine maintenance and such, but was really slow and quiet and restful. Because this company processed its shipping orders in batches once an hour, and then, boy, on the hour, every hour, the batch of orders would go through and thousands of orders would come spitting out. Now, if you were on top of things and kept everything running smoothly, the orders would print out very neatly and quickly. But if you didn't know what you were doing, if you didn't maintain things just right, you'd get a backup and things would go horrible very, very fast. And when one machine went down, you had to fix it fast before the next one jammed, because guaranteed those machines would jam up multiple times on every batch print job. So I've been working the print room for several months and things were great. Then my coworker gave his 2 weeks notice. We tried to train my replacement, but he was incredibly lazy and got himself fired a few days after the end of his training, which left me in the printer room alone. Then the bosses informed me that my position is being phased out and I'm going to be replaced by 2 employees transferred from a different department. So not only am I losing my job, but I have to train my replacements. And I desperately needed a good recommendation from this company, so I couldn't just quit or do a crappy job. I quickly learned that both of these transfers are lazy and useless. They'd been with the company for decades, had friends in the head office, and knew their jobs were safe. I'd show them how to do something, and they'd flat out laugh and say, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." Every day, I'd be trying to train them, and they would just ignore me, chat with each other, leave to go sit in the cafeteria, leaving me to do a 2-person job alone. Luckily, I was good enough to handle the workload, but it was annoying. Mindful of the fact that I needed a reference of this company, I kept extensive notes on each day's progress. I clearly documented every single instance of the replacements refusing to help, even listened to my instructions. I also followed up daily with my direct supervisor, and he knew what was going on. And my notes went into the company files and were passed up the line. Despite my scathing reports, head office did nothing. Now it's my last day. This is the day the training process assigned for letting the newbies work alone, with no help or supervision allowed, to see how well they handle the job and the pressure. I was, in writing, forbidden to help them or answer any questions. As I expected, things fell apart pretty much immediately. Minutes into the first batch of orders, one of the biggest printers jammed and the clueless jerks had no idea how to fix the printer jam. Because they ignored me every time I tried to show them how. So they turned to me and demand that I fix things. I'm sitting at a desk, coffee in one hand, an apple in the other. I just smile back and say, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." So one of them is yelling at me while the other is basically thumping uselessly on the printer like a gorilla that just found a candy machine. Then a second printer jams. Paper starts spilling out of the back of the first printer, which, if you knew the job, was a really, really bad warning sign. "Well, I'm going to the cafeteria. Good luck," I say as I stand up. As I'm leaving, I hear a third printer break down and jam up. I went to my supervisor and let him know what was happening. He said he not only expected as much, he had predicted so repeatedly to his superiors. He once again specifically forbade me from offering any help, so I went to the cafeteria and read my book for a little over an hour. Then my supervisor comes to me to let me know what happened. The entire printer room is down. Every single printer either jammed up or is actually broken. The company is losing thousands of dollars every single minute. One of the shipper and receiving supervisors finds me, all in a panic, begging me to get the orders printed. "Sorry, I'm not allowed to do that," I replied. Now several people are running around outside the cafeteria, all in a panic, running from place to place, trying to figure out why they don't have any shipping orders. The chaos took hours to resolve, and I wasn't allowed to fix the problems. Anytime someone started giving me a hard time, my supervisor would intervene and show the memo from the bosses stating that I was forbidden to help them in the printer room that day. I spent the entire last day at work drinking coffee, chatting with coworkers, and reading my book. The whole fiasco ended up costing the company tens of thousands of dollars. Am I the jerk for telling my family how much my fiancé earns after years of them making fun of his job? My family is very well educated and full of professionals, including several doctors, surgeons, dentists, etc. I have a good career and I make a good living. When I met my fiancé, he was at my house to supervise a roofing crew the insurance company hired to replace my damaged roof. I instantly fell for him when he pulled up in his truck and couldn't keep my eyes off him for the rest of the day as he gave orders to his men. When we started dating, he was vague about his job, and I just chalked it up to him being insecure about me having a better career. I didn't care about our income imbalance. When we got serious, we talked about our future plans, and that was when he told me the full extent of his little construction company. I was shocked that his construction earnings is as much as my dad's surgeon salary. Gradually, he took me around to the handful of construction lots and shopping centers he owns. His rental income, combined with his construction earnings, is double that of my dad's. He said that few people knew about this, his finances, and he expects me to keep what I know to myself. My parents disapproved of him since the first time I brought him home. My dad coined the term tool boy, and the rest of my family joined in whenever they talked about him behind his back. They don't call him that to his face, but instead just make snide remarks. Once my mom said during dinner that they're thinking about hiring someone to mow their lawn, then turned to my fiancé and asked him what he charges. I always try to defend him, and it's a constant battle. It's gotten worse since we're planning our wedding, and the other day, my nerves just broke. Yesterday, my parents were trying to talk me into getting a prenuptial agreement. Then my dad said, "You have to protect your assets, just in case Tool Boy decides to go slumming." I lost it and yelled at my parents. During our shouting, I blurted out his earnings and that he makes more than both of them combined. Then I stormed out. I told my fiancé what happened, but instead of supporting me, he got mad that I told my parents that. I argued that I was defending him, then we got into an argument too. My parents and family are mad at me for keeping secrets. My fiancé is mad at me for not keeping secrets. I'm stuck in the middle, and I don't know what to do. Sounds like your husband likes to build relationships on foundations and merits outside of his finances. Meanwhile, your family looks down on anyone they deem lesser earners than themselves. I know whose corner I'd be in. Apologize to your husband and tell your family to buzz off. Sorry, but you're the jerk. There are plenty of other things you could have said to illustrate how horrible your family was being. You didn't have to throw out numbers. Now, if your family starts acting better, he'll always know that it's on the basis of his earnings and not his character. Edit. And husband will always know that your knee-jerk reaction was to be like, "But he does make money," rather than, "Who cares what he makes? He makes me happy. He takes care of me. We're good partners with the same life goals. We love each other. Support that or shut up." Edit 2. All right, I'll give OP some leeway, but I still think that there were better ways to go about it. We're perfectly compatible and happy with our mutual finances, which are none of your business. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.